So for step 20, checking the RC equipment, really the main reason that we do this is to make sure that the servo is in neutral so that when you put on all of these pieces, they're in the correct place. So we need to grab the battery, our speed controller, the receiver, the servo, your transmitter, and once we've done the test and the servo is in neutral, we can attach all of these pieces. And depending on what radio you have, it's showing you the differences in what screws, etc. you may need depending on the servo you have. Now, in my case this time, I'm trying something new. I've bought this digital servo. I got this on Amazon, and I'm not providing any links because I don't know how this is going to perform. So I want to check it out first because it came in a bag of 4, and I think it was $32, which basically means that this servo is only $8. Now, if they're good, then maybe I might get these at a later date too, because they're pretty affordable. But I don't know what the performance is going to be, and I don't know whether it's going to fit with a Tamiya, Futaba, Sanwa, KO. I don't know. It seems like it might be its own brand. So I need to check that out. But first, let's get all of this hooked up, and we can do the servo neutral test. So here we have everything in place. We've got our battery hooked up to our ESC, and because this was pre-pandemic when this car came out, it comes with the Tamiya TBLE02S, and it's hooked into the Futaba receiver that came with my radio, and then that is all plugged in and hooked into this servo that I got off Amazon. So now this is going to be an interesting test. So first off, we need to turn on the receiver, and then we're going to need to turn on the ESC. But what you should see here is that this should do a little shimmy to make sure that this is in neutral. So let's just get this into the position you can see. I'm going to flip this on, and we should see some movement. And we don't. So that can mean one of two things, and I'll do a wire test. Either something's not connected, the battery may be flat, or this servo is shot, in which case this isn't going to work, and I will have to put something else in there. So coming back to this, if I turn this on, nothing happens. But what I have discovered is I will say I will not recommend these servos, and you get what you pay for, because they are working. But if you notice, I will turn left. There's no end point. It just keeps going, and when you stop, there's nothing to go back to neutral because it doesn't. It just stops. So I can go right, I can go left. It's not going to make any difference. It just keeps spinning in whatever direction. So there's no way I'm going to want to attach this to the car at all, because you'll just ruin your all your steering mechanisms. So that's a no for me. So I'm going to go back to what I had done before. I'm going to have to order some servos. I'm kind of stuck at this step at the moment. So I will order some servos and we'll continue with this step. Okay, I'm back. I managed to find a Futaba S148 servo, which is Futaba's most popular standard servo, and back in the day, including my Jeep Wrangler CC01, it's using an S148 servo. So what I'm going to do is when we build the CC02, the Bronco, I'm going to put an S148 servo in that as well, so that we have everything that can be the same to be the same, just so that it feels equal. Now, it might not make that much of a difference, but I'm going to do that. So we'll put that in the CC02 as well. Now, if I turn everything back on, we're going to be able to do this test as I intended to show you before. So, as you will see, you can see the ribbing on the servo itself. When I turn this on, you should see that it will do a shimmy, and that's how we're going to know that it is working, and it will shimmy to neutral. So then we will know where to place all of the bits in the servo saver on top of this, because it will be in the correct place. So let me turn this on. There you go. So you saw it do a shimmy, and I'm gonna see if I can bring this a little closer as well. Well, that shimmy is just letting you know it's in the correct place. Now we can place all of the servo saver bits on there without any trouble. So now that I am using the Futaba servo, we'll now be able to grab the right parts that they suggest in order to put this together. So I'm just going to set everything up, and then we'll put the servo saver pieces onto the servo. So I've grabbed all of the parts that we're going to need to put onto the servo. Now, it's showing you a whole bunch of screws. Well, as you can see with this diagram, it really is dependent upon what servo you have. So in my case, because it's a Futaba, it's actually going to be this little tapping screw that came in bag E. And then of course we've got our ball connector. So first things first, we're going to need to get that ball connector into this. And you can see that in terms of the way that sits, the ball connector needs to be underneath. So it would be right there. So I'm going to use the box wrench, but I just want to get it started, which looks fairly good. And let's make sure that that's going in level, which it is now. So we can screw this in. Yeah. There we go. So there is our ball connector in place. So what we're going to do is we're going to place this piece onto here. Now, I like to get the notch piece, which you see right here at the bottom. I like to get that as perpendicular to the servo as possible. And I'm thinking between the two locations, that seems to be the closest. And you can see here that when this goes on, which is interesting, it's going to go onto an angle. And typically they're perpendicular to the servo. So we're going to be sort of adjusting this one. But anyways, that piece is on. So now we're going to place the other part of the servo saver on top of that so that it looks like that. Then we've got to place this piece here, which you can see is on its own angle to that piece, because when you put that into there, it's already off on an angle, which is exactly what they wanted it to look like. So that's fine. And then we've got this little B2 piece that sits in there. And then we have our screw, which we're going to need to screw in place. So I'm going to hold the servo saver in a way that I don't want it to move. So essentially I'm putting my thumb on this so that when I feel resistance, it's not going to move the servo out of that neutral position. And there we go. Might just do one little more of a screw in, but it's there. So there is the servo, and you can see how that's needed to look. So that is complete. So essentially that is step 20. We've done everything on it because everything down here is showing you the different screws, as I said earlier. So now that step 20 is finished, we're going to move on to step 21, which is attaching the servo. But this is also where they want you to do the steering adjustment. So again, as I said in a previous step, I didn't bother to put on the ball connector piece here back there because it's in this step where you have to do those final adjustments. So I'm going to do all that in this step. So I'll grab everything we need and we'll start working on step 21.